All right, welcome to the Trenches. I'm Sam Mays, and this is the College Football Playoff Championship post game as the Michigan Wolverines beat the Washington Huskies in what I call a great reminder. The reality is, Michigan shows up with an incredible run game and a physical defense, and they show us something that's been true since the beginning of the game, right? Since the very first football game. You can win a title by running the football with a great offensive line and having a defense that will hit you in the mouth. And Michigan did that for 4 quarters of football today. You could really tell how much it just drained the Washington football team, who put up one hell of a fight. Don't get me wrong. Washington showed up in the first half. They took their lumps. Michigan looked like they were going to run away with it, but the Huskies rallied themselves. They kept the game relatively close. You're looking at a 13-20 game. They were within 7 points for the majority of the game, and it took to the very end, the fourth quarter, where finally Michigan, just leaning on Washington offensively and defensively, just overcame them. You could really see almost a mental breakdown of the Washington football team, making mistakes, dropping passes. Penix is just getting hit left and right. Michigan was patient. Michigan was physical. Michigan group tackled for 4 quarters of football, and Michigan is your 2023-24 national title winner. Absolutely incredible. I've got to give a big shout out to a couple of my sponsors. Lock Supply, thank you so much for your support this college football season, and Euros Health, one of the new sponsors here in the trenches. I'm excited to work with them throughout the offseason as we've got a little bit of a weight loss challenge coming up with Euros help. It's going to be absolutely incredible. So make sure you stay tuned to my podcast as we discuss a little bit what we've got going on with them. I'd love for you guys to join up and compete with me, see if we can get a little healthier here in 2024. Also, the Sellout Crowd app has dropped. So make sure that you go and download that today. At the touch of a finger, you can get the hottest sports content in Oklahoma on Sellout Crowd's app. It is absolutely incredible. These guys do an incredible job. The content that we produce across the board is great stuff. Oklahoma State, the Thunder coverage is phenomenal as we get into the meat and potatoes of that season coming up. It's been a lot of fun since Sellout Crowd dropped. So make sure you check out all those things and download the app today. Other things that stuck out about this game. Really, actually, let's talk about this. One of the things that somebody mentioned to me on social media was Michigan doesn't deserve this, right? The controversy with the signal callings and things like that. The reality is, if you're not, I don't know a game where one of my offensive linemen didn't come off the field and tell a coach, when the linebacker says this or does this, this is what's happening. Throughout the course of a football game, you're always looking to steal signals or get information in some way, shape, or form that's going to assist your team down the road. Now, Michigan obviously went through some extensive preparations for some of these things, and it's a black eye on the football team. But am I looking at them stealing signals as the reason why they're national champions tonight? No, not at all. I think what you saw was the physical football team go out there and play their best game, and they've been doing it really since Ohio State to close out the season. So does it does it put a bit of a, not necessarily asterisk on this game, but it does put a little bit of a damper on what they were able to accomplish because of the controversy. Harbaugh out 3 games this season, which obviously is just a little bit odd when you consider everything that they've went through. I mean, how many? It just doesn't happen, right? I mean, it's just a weird situation for Michigan football. You got to give it up to the Huskies, in a year where the Pac-12 dissipates. No more Pac-12 football. To see them represent that conference one final time in a championship appearance was pretty cool. They absolutely deserved it, right? You're talking about another great offensive line, a quarterback that's top tier. I think he's a first-round pick this year. Penix really showed me something the last couple of weeks, even taking the beating that they took today. He's a gutsy kid. He's got a big arm. I think he'll do nothing but improve and nothing but get better. If he hits the right system, he could be a force to be reckoned with relatively quick. I think he's smart, savvy, makes good decisions, is athletic enough to save his self and make a play on the ground. Like, I think that athleticism is going to translate to the NFL. A lot of times that doesn't necessarily happen for some of these kids, but I think his will, which is important to his level of success. But what a great game. What a great game to close out the season. I picked Washington to win this game. I thought Penix was the better quarterback in the game, and I still think he's the better quarterback in the game. But you got to give it up to JJ McCarthy for the way that he competes. He's an absolute gamer, right? He's going to do what it takes in the moment for his team to have success. I thought he threw the ball really very well in this game, and when they needed him to do something on the ground, he made plays all night long, to the point that Michigan started calling organized plays for him on the ground, which you knew his athleticism was going to play a part in this game at some point. So, as far as the finale is concerned, I think that this was a great game. I thought, there's a lot of energy throughout that entire stadium. Both the Michigan fans and the Washington fans were just crazy when their teams were on defense, because it was such a defensive battle for so long. And, obviously it didn't get out of hand until the very, very end. That last Michigan interception taken down to like the 10-yard line was a real gut punch for Washington, and kind of, deflated that building a little bit. But man, it was high energy. It was very exciting. I loved every second of it. My wife and I were on the opposite side. She picked Michigan, I picked Washington in this game, and she ends up being right again. I feel like I've been wrong a lot at the end of this season here, but man, it was everything that I could have hoped for in a finale. Do I wish that Georgia Michigan would have played maybe just a little bit, right? When you think of Georgia, it's like the Monstars of college football. They are also big, nasty, physical. I think would have absolutely welcomed the challenge of a Michigan football team and the bully ball that they played for 4 quarters today. So I kind of would have liked to see that. If I could ask for one more game, it would be a Georgia Michigan matchup, just to see a couple of heavyweights, throw haymakers for a few rounds, which I think exactly what that would feel like. But yeah, I mean, the committee got it right. You got to give them credit for that as far as the entertainment factor of this. And I know people hate to hear it. Even I hate to hear it. Do I wish Florida State would have been given an opportunity at the 4? Yeah, they deserved it. They were undefeated in a Power 5 conference, and those kids fought through adversity all season long, and they found a way to change who they were, to continue to have success on the football field. They deserve to play in a semifinal game. But the reality is the committee is looking for the best matchups, right? What's going to bring us the best brand of football as the college football season comes to a close, and they absolutely got it right. We've seen between the 2 semifinal games and this national championship, we've seen nothing but great football for a couple of weeks. This is absolutely the finale that they wanted, and now you get one of the iconic brands of college football. The Michigan Wolverines win a championship going into this next era of college football. So I think the sport, as crazy as it is, when you start talking about transfer portal, NIL, the term dark money is becoming more prevalent in the sports. Kids bouncing around, making moves, getting big paychecks. The reality is the soap opera that we all love, right? Going all the way back to when I was on the field in the early 2000s. That's if you can't lose a game or you can't win a national championship. You remember the conversation like, 09, 2010, oh no, if it goes to a 14 playoff, does college football lose that feeling, right? That feeling of perfection. Does it lose the energy? Are people going to tune it off? Does it become a washed up version of the NFL? And it's like, no, the thing has done nothing but become crazier and crazier. I look at my social media every single day, and the amount of people that are just following and hanging on every bit of information, that their teams put out there about who's coming in the portal, who's leaving in the portal, NIL, and helping their teams out and programs out. And, this kid's making this much, and this kid's moving this way, and this guy's dad is he stole his son from it's just craziness. It's absolute craziness. At the end of the day, I feel like more and more people are tuning in to college football, which is exciting for me. It's my favorite sport. I think it's just different than the NFL. I had a professor at Oklahoma State tell me a long time ago that college football is a spectacle, a lot like what you're seeing in the Olympics or a World Cup, right? It's so much more than just the teams that take the field like you're seeing in the NFL. It's the bands and the fans and the cheerleaders and the food and the culture of each small college town, and what they bring to the table each game day is something unique. And I just love it. I love the pageantry of it all. I think it's a very special sport. And I think when you talk about a 12-team playoff moving forward, we're going to get a better brand of football. We're going to get more parity in the game because of the transfer portal and NIL. Like, that's also the reality of this. Like, there's going to be, you talk about a 12-team playoff, you're going to get 8 teams that got a shot, right? 8 teams that, if they're healthy and the game plan works out, right, the coaches are all of a sudden play a bigger factor, I think, in a 12-team playoff the reality of how they use their games to prepare for playoff games, right? What the coaches that have success in bye weeks are going to be the coaches that have success preparing for a playoff game. The more work that you can get done, the more you can change your offense, the more you can change your defense, the more you can show your opponent things that you haven't done this season, right? Being able to steal from opponents in week 3 and put it in a bag and hold out before using it until the end of the year, right? For a playoff game, that type of thing. I think it just gets better and better and better. I can't absolutely wait to see what's next for the great game of college football. Okie Lawn Guy, do you think Washington could have beat Alabama? I think it would have been another good game. I think it would have been another 4-quarter game. I think that Bama's got a little bit of that Michigan feel at times when it comes to just big, physical, fast. I think Washington more speed than physicality, even though you got to give a lot of those credit to those kids in the way they played the last couple of weeks. They answered the call when they needed to, not necessarily their identity, but when it came down to it, when they had to get tough, they did, right? They did in both of these last couple of games. So I think it would be another great one. Michigan absolutely won because they're better in the trenches than Washington, no question. Michigan's offensive line was just dynamic. The way that they came with the football together, blocking down on the second level was incredible. It was like a wave of Michigan blue for 4 quarters. They were electric. Ron Lane, but Sam, you are talking about 2 things. You want a playoff or entertainment. This has never been a playoff. The committee never cared about true national champion. They only care about ratings and money. I feel, Ron, I don't disagree with you, right? But I will say, at the end of the majority of playoffs that we've had, I'm not necessarily mad about the national champion, right? Like how we got there, maybe not the fairest way to do it, but we eventually got to the best team in college football. And I feel that way again this year. I think Michigan's the best team in college football. When I was a kid, I was told that cheaters never win. Well, what about 15-0? Yeah, it's tough, man. The Florida State kids, I think there should be a 30 for 30 done about that season, this season, and what they accomplished, what they went through. And then I think I know for those who didn't play, for those of you that, will say it's just a game. I know you're not going to understand what I'm going to say next, but the mental toll that this experience has taken on some of those kids, right? Those kids that sat down in that room for the CFP selection show as an undefeated Power 5 team who had fought through so much, right? This confidence as they walked into the room. They got out of their cars in the parking lot, their heads were high, right? They sat down in the chairs and they were just waiting to find out which one of the other 3 teams they were going to be matched up against, because Florida State was going to play in a semifinal game. And they sat there in a room together, and on national television, they were told, sorry, it doesn't matter that you were perfect. It doesn't matter that you fought through adversity. It doesn't matter what we have done in the past, right? It doesn't matter what we've been saying for years and years and years. You go undefeated, you're in. You play in a Power 5, you go undefeated, you're in. None of that matters. I promise you, some of those kids are struggling with this. And then to make it even that much more worse, you pair them up against a Georgia team who is better than Florida State without their starting quarterback. And then Florida State loses 19 plus kids to the portal. Their team basically just implodes. So the guys that were left dealing with the overall just gut punch that they just took, they get to put on the field against a Georgia team to just be road graded for 4 quarters. It shouldn't. I love what Kirby Smart said. It should have never happened like that. Like, you could tell that it was out of control and he didn't want to be there for it. Didn't want his kids to go through it. The Florida State Seminoles did not deserve what happened to them. And I promise you, we're going to get more about this story, and we're going to hear, whether it's 20 years from now, and I'm an old man sitting down watching TV, and one of those kids is going to pop up as a 40-year-old and just talk about how it impacted his life. And I know that sounds crazy to some of you, but when you commit to something as complete and totally as these kids have to do in today's game of college football, and you accomplish what they've accomplished, and what happened to you happens to those kids happens. I mean, I can't even imagine. So that is definitely the most disappointing part of the college football season for me, for sure. Let's be honest, Georgia beats both of these teams. Georgia very capable of beating both of these teams. I would agree to that. Right. Would they do it? I think that Michigan and Washington are capable of beating Georgia, right, on any given Saturday. That could happen. I'm not going to say that Michigan, you play 10 times, is Georgia going to win 6 of them? Maybe, right? Maybe that would happen, but I think Washington and Michigan capable of beating Georgia. Do you think Michigan's title will be vacated? Man, that's an interesting conversation. I saw somebody tweet that out too, that this would be vacated before the banner was hung. I mean, Harbaugh has definitely pissed off a few folks, right? He's definitely had some conversations that people don't want to hear. Even this week, during the championship press conference, he's talking about profit sharing with the kids. And I promise you, right, the powers that be at Michigan and at his sister schools and other schools around the country, they don't want to hear that. It's already out of control in their eyes, with NIL and what's happened with the money that some of these kids are getting now. But you're talking about TV revenue should be part of that, should go to them, and it probably should, right? I mean, the reality is it should, but he's not making any friends. Um, and I wonder, if this is the ability to, do they take this opportunity to go on a bit of a witch hunt for him? I also very much wonder if he's going to take an NFL job this offseason to maybe avoid some of those things, right? And so it's an interesting conversation for sure. Well, guys, I appreciate you joining me tonight. I know it wasn't an Oklahoma or Oklahoma State game, but I love doing these post games, and I'll probably do, once we start getting, probably AFC, NFC championship games. I'll do a Super Bowl post game to close out the NFL season. As we get ramped up this weekend, I know people are just furious about the Chiefs game being live on Peacock. So it's odd. It's absolutely odd. What sports were for everyone. It was like the one thing that would bring all of us together. And I know, it's a whatever $5 subscription or whatever it might be, but I hate to see that. There might be someone out there, because $5 for somebody. Look, I mean, I went and bought taco stuff for my family the other day. It was almost $50. Like, it is, times have changed. And so I feel bad for the people that are miss out on that game this weekend for sure. But, I'm sure that we'll hear quite a bit about the reaction from the public that an NFL playoff game is not accessible to all. How about Porter Moser? You know what? We're going to talk about Porter Moser here. Probably not this week on the podcast, but we're going to get into some college basketball next week. I got a lot to say about him and the job that he's done. You got to love the fire. You got to love the passion, the energy, what he's done to Oklahoma basketball in a short amount of time. And it really kind of came out of nowhere. After last season, I didn't have any expectation that they would look as good as they look this year. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about Porter and my guy Mike Boynton up there in Stillwater. You want to talk about bad luck and just poor situations for him. It sucks that they're probably going to have to say goodbye to him this season, even though a lot of what has happened to him wasn't even his fault. So it is what it is, I guess. But all right, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. That is the college football finale. Michigan wins. They are your national champion this year. Once again, big thank you for those who follow me in the trenches. Make sure you like and subscribe. Once again, download the Sellout Crowd app. At the touch of one of your fingers, you can get all access to all the great content that me and my colleagues put out there each and every week. And once again, big thank you to Lock Supply and Euros Health. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.